Hi, everyone. We're back to talk about structure, as we said. So, this is the first of one of our kind of set of concrete examples and how these practices and situations show up in everyone's homes. I guess my bottom line that I want to start with structure and partnership parenting is that structure, in this sense, is something you co create together. Structure does not mean it's a schedule or a plan that the parent makes and then imposes on the child and says, you're going to follow this structure. I hope you agree. And now we have structure together. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the kind of routines and maybe family meetings if that's what works for you, and sometimes schedules. It depends on the family for sure. But we're talking about all those little structures that the family creates together and everyone buys in together, and you iterate because the structure isn't going to work the same all the time. Has to be iterative. You have to be able to visit it to see if it's meeting everyone's needs and shift it if it's not. um, and you continue to iterate and co-create those things together in a way that meets your collective needs and your individual needs. So that's the kind of structure we're talking about. Again, it can be schedules, it can be routines, it can even be chore lists, but that's going to depend on what works for you and what comes up in your family and how everyone wants to tackle that together.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bria. And then I would say just a little bit about a couple of the benefits of doing structures that way. It can seem like, look, if your goal is to have the ability to share the space and get the chores done and do that, and just have a structure in place and working, you can do that by saying, this is the structure and do it or else. And if your threats and punishments are strong enough, I mean, I think North Korea does a fairly good job of getting people to do the chores of the country, right? It will get done. But part of the issue is that your kids will hate you probably for the rest of your life. And they will throw wrenches in everything they possibly can in your life to get your needs unmet, to get a sense of feeling like they have some dignity and control over their lives. So moving away from the dictatorial way of doing it, which can get you results, right? It can make it work. But what are our other goals here? We know that we can get structures in our households that work and feel good at the same time through a process of co-creation and really understanding everybody's needs and finding a way to make that work. So we know we can achieve that goal. Another incredibly important goal is helping our kids understand how to build structures. And they do not learn how to do that by being forced to do them under threat of punishment. What they're learning there is how to use power. They're not learning anything about structures. How kids learn how to build structures that meet people's needs. Structures are there for a purpose, right? They're not just a thing. They serve the needs of the people in them. And for kids to, and all of us to practice identifying what everybody in the system's needs are, where they align, where they conflict, and how to build mechanisms. It's a design challenge. And these are the kinds of skills that our kids, and we all need, none of us are perfect at them. We need to understand how to get into situations with other human beings, whether it's in the workplace or in our homes, identify everybody's needs and find ways to meet them in structures and tools that will support that. The human beings that are going to have jobs in 20 years, other than the computers and the robots and the AIs doing all the work, which is going to happen, are the human beings that know how to do that, not the human beings that know how to respond to threats and do what they're told in that manner. They are not going to be employable. So the benefits, just wanted to lay those out. So in terms of the kinds of structures that we all feel we need in our families, right? Like who gets to use the bathroom when, if we're all home and there's limited bathrooms, or you have a call with with work or with whatever it is, a Zoom call or whatever it is, and there's one place in the house that works well for that because it's quiet and the lighting is good or whatever it is. How do you negotiate that? How do you determine who gets to use stuff when? Those are the kinds of structures that I think everybody can either spend their time fighting over and building resentment with each other over and use our energy in that way, or we can use those challenges as opportunities to learn how to better relate with each other and make our needs known and hear other people's and still get those needs met without the constant fighting and resentment building over it. So how do we do some of those structures? Bria, what's a structural kind of agreement or challenge in your house that had to be come to, and how did you come to that agreement around it?
Yeah, I want to jump on that Zoom one that you're talking about right now, because that's very real for a lot of people. And it's very real for us, especially as we switched environments and I don't have a home office and everyone's schedules are all shaken up. But what I found over the past month or so, before I needed to navigate using Zoom when my son was home and then my husband was off working. So it was only one person, we could navigate that. And as we shifted, I keep forgetting that there's extra people I need to navigate with. And what I found if I only talk to my son or I only talk to my husband and I expect them to work it out, or I expect them to like mind read my need, then someone's going to walk through the call. Someone's going to ask me for something. Someone's going to interrupt somehow. So it doesn't actually work if you're thinking about like, well, I just need to talk to my adult partner and then they'll deal with the kid. That doesn't work. You need to talk to everyone in the house if you have a need and make sure everyone's on the same page and not assume that anyone can mind read and not assume that the adults will like take care of the kids for you. So really that's one where checking in the day before and then checking in 10 minutes before, or if it's more of a negotiation of space, you need to work that out however long it takes for you, but like knowing you need the extra time before the meeting starts to work that out with all the people in the household is really important, because it's not going to work itself out if you don't talk to them and your meeting starts. Then suddenly it's like a fire you have to put out in the middle of the meeting. So checking in whenever works for you and making sure everyone in the household knows what's going on is really important.
And that makes me think of, Bria, that some of us during these times have scheduled things, right? My daughter starts her online check-in with her class at about 8:15 every morning. And I know that she likes to do that in her room. She has a desk there. That's a desk that I sometimes use. I don't have my home office. My home office used to be the whole house because I was the only one working from home. And now I basically have nowhere because everybody else now has their own desk and things. And I use the kitchen table, but sometimes I need a space like my daughter's room or my wife's office. And so, getting clear with everyone around what are the scheduled needs that we all have, and how can we, like, you can as much as you can prefigure, and again, in a way that's not, hey, everybody, these are all my needs and mom's needs, and you guys just need to stay out of these rooms at these times, etc. Like, you're gonna get payback for that some way, just the disrespect that entails. And if we say, hey, we thought it might be a good idea to pre-schedule the stuff we know. What do you think, everybody? I think that'll save us all some kind of scrambling and hassle. This is a concept that I use and practice and coach on, is to get what I call enlistment, which is, hey, I think this is a challenge that we all have. Is that right? Yes, we've got alignment now that it's a challenge we share, right? Okay. Hey, I thought it'd be really great if we could spend 10 minutes one of these mornings, or even, or whenever it is, when's a good time for you, to just really map that out so we don't have to deal with this constantly every day. What do you think? Good idea? Yes, it's reasonable. Enlistment. So it's like those kind of I agree buttons on software when you install it. Yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. When you've hit that button a bunch, you're then starting to get commitment to it, rather than, we don't have commitment to those software things, but when you do it with actual dialogue, you get commitment to what's happening. And so I think enlistment in these processes is great. So if we can map out that stuff in ahead of time, it's going to give us more emotional and relational resources for the ones that are more last minute. And a structure we can build to support the last minute ones is a structure of communication, which is some agreements around, hey, everybody, what do you think will work best for us when we do have those kind of last minute, like I just got a text from work that it's really important that I jump on a call in 10 minutes, that I really need to be able to focus and not have distractions and noise and things. And I really need, this room that somebody else also wants and or needs. How do you think we should deal with those situations, everybody? 5-year-olds have good suggestions for how to deal with those kinds of situations. They understand people's needs. It's also an opportunity to practice empathy and build that together as a family. So you can still support last minute things ahead of time by agreeing on the structure of communication around them. And just as a quick example, I walked into my daughter's room one time and said, hey, I really need your desk in your room. I got a call and, like right now. And she was understandably kind of miffed. She was like, you get a little bit of that, like very, that attitude that makes sense a little bit. And we talked about it a little bit right there where I started to apologize, said, I know this is really, it's last minute and it's not really fair, but it actually is really important because of our prior relationship, of her understanding that I'm actually not just assuming that she's just got to do what I say, but I actually say, I'm really sorry about this and it's not fair. I understand that. Can we talk later about how we can, find out how we can make this work? And we had a great conversation afterwards where she basically just said, I'm not mad that you need my room. I'm mad that I didn't have any warning about it. And even the 10 minutes that I knew about it would have been better than the 1 minute I gave her. So that we built the structure based on that challenge for the next time that comes up. And I think that can be a great way to deal with challenges and about structures too, is if there's a challenge, use that as an opportunity to say, hey, how can we deal with that better next time so that we're in integrity and honor with each other around the thing. What do you think, Bria?
Yeah, I want to touch on two things. And one thing is something I think you talked about, but I want to really highlight it. And it's this idea of equity of need, no matter how old the person or what you're doing, to treat needs as equal. And sometimes needs take time precedence. Sometimes maybe they're not equal in the sense that some of us are making money to sustain the household and we need to have meetings to make money to sustain the household. And maybe that takes like internet access priority over the like Minecraft server your kid is playing on. But if you treat that Minecraft server as not a valid need and never important, then they're not going to really understand or care about your work need. So you really need to think about equity of need and think of what your kids are doing as important as what you are doing, and then talk through those things. Like I've actually had to, because of our internet bandwidth in the last couple of weeks, be like, hey, can you get off your video games online because my internet slowed and I'm having a really important call. And I set that up beforehand saying like, this call is coming up, I might ask you to turn your video games off. And he always does. My son always turns his video games off when I need it, but he also knows I'm only going to say that once in a while. I'm only going to say it when it's really important. And I do believe, I'm not saying it because I don't believe his video games are important to him. I'm saying it because of what's happening in that moment. And he has all this other time to access those. And I'm not saying like, this, I think sometimes we'll go to this defensive place where it's like, well, video games are not helping you in the same way my work is helping, and my work pays for your internet to play your game. Like, I think we go to that defensive place sometimes to like highlight how our need is more important. And I don't think you have to go to that place if you have this equitable relationship and this communication line open. The other thing I want to say is that we're gonna mess up. We're gonna snap about the internet. We're gonna get annoyed that someone walked through our meeting, even if we forgot to tell them about it. We're going to say, this is something I say sometimes, I'm working now, I can't talk to you because I'm in the middle of like typing a sentence and someone's trying to say something to me. Um, and we're not always going to be perfect. And in just like any relationship, that is okay. The thing that's really important to me to do in my relationships is always circle back later. And sometimes it's really hard if I like really messed up and I have a lot of feelings about it. It is hard to go up to my son and say like, I'm so sorry I yelled at you. That wasn't fair. That must have like really hurt you. It's all my fault. Like, it's hard to say those things, but it's really important and it's true. And that helps build the understanding and communication too. So it's really important to say those hard things, especially to your kids who may not be used to being apologized to by adults.
Those are all great points, Bria. Something we talked about just a little bit in the intro video, the video right before this one, is that idea of kind of when equity and respect and fairness reach equilibrium in a relationship ecosystem, all behaviors change. When the ecosystem there's not equilibrium and there's unfairness and kind of disrespect, an expectation of respect one direction but not going the other direction, then you start getting people resisting and being defiant around just very kind of what seem like reasonable needs in that moment. Hey, I really kind of need this room right now. No, it's my room. But when there's this sense of, because kids pay, we all do. I don't want to say just kids, adults, every human being, we are so ingrained to be fair that we are fair. If people have been disrespectful for us, we pay them back, sometimes with interest. And if people are fair and respectful to us, we instinctually pay them back with fairness and respect. And so don't assume that if you do this once, after years of being sort of disrespectful to kids and not honoring their needs, that they're just going to immediately flip that switch. But once they feel and really believe that you mean it and that the ecosystem has achieved some kind of equilibrium, then defiant behavior just for the sake of defiance and payback will disappear. Just over and over again, we see this. One of the things you mentioned, Bria, that I think is actually a really good structure to talk about is sort of structures around interruption. And like I'm working right now, just so sort of like agreements around that. Hey, everybody, when I'm working, it can be really distracting and frustrating to have people come in and just start talking to me about needs they have or whatever it might be. And I would really appreciate it if I'm in, if you see these signs like door closed or, me like hunched over and wrinkled forehead, like, or whatever it might be, headphone in my ear, please don't just come in and start talking to me about something. I need a little notice or warning. And so my kids now will kind of slip me a note, like when you have time, like I could use help with this. And that works really well. So negotiating that. So I want to bring up a tool that we'll provide some resources on, which is called an impact statement or an I statement, which is basically like observation. When you come to me and say, hey, I need you to open this jar of pickles for me. And it's just like kind of goes in front of my Zoom video when I'm talking to somebody, a jar of pickles. I worry that it disrupts my train of thought. I worry that the people I'm talking to think that maybe I'm not professional or that I don't care about our meeting because I didn't put protections around it. And basically just reasons why the observed activity or behavior has an impact and what that impact is. And then to follow it with an ask. So the formula is just noticing objectively, not judgmentally, but just objectively, when pickle jar goes in front of my Zoom camera, this is what the impact is and how it makes me feel. And here's an ask I have of you. Observation, impact or feeling, and ask. And so that is a structure, I think, of how we can communicate our needs to each other and interruptions are happening to all of us all the time. And back to Bria's point about equity of need, that doesn't mean everybody gets all, it's not equality of need. It doesn't mean we all get our needs met when we need them every time. What it means is that when we approach a situation, you do not automatically assume that your need is more important or valid because you are older and bigger and have more money in your pocket. If you do that, the fairness and respect spider sense will go off in the other human being, regardless of age, and they will become obstructive because that's the way that they can feel they have some dignity and power over their lives. Test it. Don't take our word for it. You will find that if you do that on a fairly regular basis for a pretty short amount of time, in our experience, you will see a shift in how people respond to your need of not having pickle jars put in front of your video camera when you're having a Zoom conversation. Yeah, so we should probably wrap this, I think, Bria. What else might you want to add about structures? What have we maybe not covered that's really important for folks to think about?
I can't think of anything at the moment. I would just say that we've talked a lot about structures that you can put in place before something happened. And we've talked a lot about moments when you don't put something in place. So I think, especially as you're easing into this, be kind to yourself. If you forget to tell someone that you're having a meeting before you're having it and they interrupt you and that's frustrating to you, like that's going to happen. It's an iterative process. That's always going to happen. But it's going to happen even more as you're working through as a family how to set up those structures. So just be ready and don't think that everything should or will be perfect right away.
Yeah, that's great. A great point. And I would say also recognize that it might seem like it's going to take a little more time, right? Pickle jar in front of the thing. Stop that, get away. That's really disrespectful and, not helpful. Who do you think you are, right? Yeah, pickle jar not in front of the thing anymore only took half a second, but you're going to have work to deal with later with the payback from how you did that. And you might even have people finding other ways to disrupt you just for payback. So, recognize that it might take, in the moment, you can just say, if your relationship is, getting there, oh, hey, sweetie, can I help you later? And then, they'll recognize that and move away. And then, yeah, it'll take a 5-minute conversation about the impact that had and why that was, but it's worth it. You're developing empathy, you're developing communication channels to make it so that later on, they'll automatically be thinking about how that might affect you. And your workload is going to drop significantly later on because you're investing in that relationship. So it'll feel like maybe a little more energy or time in the beginning, but the conflict will drop immensely later, and just the good feelings in the household. What I've seen is I just have started to see kids just do things without being asked or told because they start to recognize it as a need, and they're not just waiting for the adult instruction, and they're not kind of angry that they're constantly being told what to do in a mean way. So they just start to, again, be like, oh, I'm a member of this community, not just a slave. I think I'll participate. So next video, Bria, I'm kind of feeling learning / homework / schoolwork as the next, like, really hot topic for people. Shall we do that one next?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. Kind of put you on the spot there, but yeah, let's do it. And so we'll see everybody next time. Put your comments in the chat, subscribe, and then we'll try to answer some of those questions if we can. And check out the next video on homework, schoolwork. How do you deal with that tension area with kids? And we'll take it from there. Thanks, Bria. See you in that video.
Bye, everyone.
So those are the foundations of how to build structures. And in the next video, we'll look at how to apply those tools to building structures around homework and schoolwork.